All right, I'm gonna go to get started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 82, talking about how to properly address disrespect, right? Now, this is a podcast that I think definitely is needed. And the main reason for it being needed is a lot of different things. So I'll get into that in a few minutes. But just to start it off, if you're new, I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you go ahead and follow my TikTok. It's just Life of a Champ podcast on TikTok. Um, Also, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube shorts as well. I posted two today, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, two today. And I also post short clips. So if you can't watch the full podcast and want to watch something longer than a 60-second clip, make sure you go ahead and tap in with those videos as well. Other than that, fellas, we'll go ahead and get it rocking. We'll get it rocking, man. So, like I said, the topic for today: how to properly address disrespect. Man, why does it keep doing that? It's fine, whatever. Yeah, I came up with this topic because I observed that men, more importantly, value respect differently than women do. Which you're probably thinking, what are you talking about, champ? I do believe that men value that over being loved. I truly do that. A man does not feel loved if he's not respected, right? And you could say, oh, well, women feel the same way. It's slightly different. It's slightly different. I didn't make it this way. It's just something that I observe. It's just slightly different for men, right? And with that being said, I recognize that most people do not handle disrespect properly, right? They just genuinely do not handle it properly, right? So more importantly, they don't handle it maturely, right? And that's the entire thing about handling disrespect is you have to handle it maturely because if you don't, it could definitely end up in a less than favorable position for everybody that's involved. That's for sure. So, if it's not handled maturely, it can definitely lead to violence, which I will say is necessary in some situations, right? It's not. It's definitely not necessary in most situations, right? If somebody's clearly disrespecting you, right? Hey, you might need to handle your business, man. You might need to handle your business, especially if they're affecting you and yours, right? Um, there's going to be certain times and places where that's going to be more of an understandable decision if you escalated it to violence, right? But I do believe that most situations do not need violence, and a lot of the situations that have violence nowadays that come down to disrespect should be and could have been avoided if they truly knew how to maturely go about um, addressing disrespect. So that's how I kind of wanted to start it off. Like I said, if you're watching this, I appreciate you for watching. Make sure and leave a like on the video. Like I said, if you're new, make sure you say what's good, and I'm checking the comments as well. And like I said, if you're tapping in tonight, I want to know if you're here. So give me 1 second. All right. So like I said, it's gonna either end. Getting disrespect is gonna end in one of two ways, right? You're gonna either, like I said, violence. It could be properly and maturely handled, or it's going to end in like an argument of some kind, right? A disagreement, right? And I feel like most arguments in general come down to a misconception that one person has over the other, right? So with that being said, you need to firmly create and establish the boundaries for yourself. What is something that you're not willing to take anymore, right? Where you draw the line? You need to be very clear with just in anyone, right? Anyone and everyone need to be clear with their boundaries, right? How much disrespect are you willing to take, right? How much um, belittling are you willing to take before it's too much? Because there's going to be a tipping point for everybody, right? There's some situations that are, like I said, just not even worth interacting with. But there's certain situations where, like I said, you may need to step in and say something, right? And that's kind of why I wanted to make this podcast because, like I said, you need to be able to, like I said, address them accordingly, right? So with that being said, right, if you are in interaction with somebody, right, and they don't, it's not overly aggressive when it comes to their disrespect, right? Everybody, okay, let me go back. Let's just say, like I say, it's not a ridiculous expression of disrespect, right? So you can kind of handle that. You can kind of handle that a few different ways. The one way that I would recommend you handling is letting them know of the boundary that you have, right? Saying, hey, let's just stop this. Let's stop the interaction real quick, right? Just I would say pause it in time. Definitely do that, right? Pause it in actual real time and say, hey, that thing you just did right there, right? I do not accept that. I do not accept people doing that around me. That think that's okay, right? I do not think that's okay. It makes me feel uncomfortable, right? And I know what you're probably thinking, right? Maybe it sounds a little weird or a little like too strategic or analytic, but I think it's absolutely necessary when it comes to an interaction, right? that person will be able to check themselves in that moment to say, hey, is there something that I'm truly doing wrong? Do I innately feel like there is something that I'm doing that is wrong right now? And like I said, just even having that little heads up, having that little, like I said, pausing moment to pause the interaction is going to allow them to think a little bit deeper about the situation and how they're handling it, right? All right. With that being said, you need to do it. You need to do it in a certain way. You need to have a certain demeanor about yourself when it comes to how you properly handle that, right? So if you're let's just say somebody disrespects you, somebody says something to you, right? Handle it very very calmly and say, like I said, hey, right, that thing that you just did right there, I do not appreciate that. I do not think that's okay, and I think it's very very disrespectful. So if you would like to have an interaction with me, I would need you to treat me with the respect that I'm going to treat you with, which is going to be the utmost respect, right? Everyone should be respectful, right? And if you hear a lot of it comes down to not being taught that, which is so sad because it's a fundamental thing within the human interaction. Yet most people are not truly taught how to respect others, right? That's just my opinion. That's just the way I see it, right? If you know me personally, you know I don't disrespect people. Um, that's just not my character, right? You have to be asking for it, and here's the thing: I have to go out of my way to disrespect somebody. So you literally have to be asking for it at that point, right? And I'm not saying that's something that I do. I'm saying that I guess you can say there's certain times and certain places where you might need to if they are with you. That's the only way to, I would say, handle the situation in certain occasions, right? Especially with violence and stuff like that, right? But with that being said, one thing that I've observed with disrespect, right, and I'm pretty sure everyone can observe this as well, is everyone views disrespect or disrespectful acts differently, right? So someone might be disrespecting you and they don't even recognize that they're actually intentionally trying to disrespect you. That is just something that they do. Maybe it's something that they never got checked on before, right? And that's why you would need to check them right there. But like I said, everyone views it differently. So there's certain things that people will think is okay, and there's certain things that people will not think that it is not okay, right? Shout out to Isaac first coming in here, man. Appreciate you stopping by, man. But with that being said, you cannot just let this slide, right? You're letting somebody step on your boundaries, and if you're a person that gets truly uncomfortable, which most people truly get uncomfortable when somebody steps on their boundaries, and of course you're going to need to, like I said, take some action. And if you're not taking action, you're going to almost resent yourself for not taking that action. You're going to feel a certain amount of discomfort in your own skin because you didn't truly handle that situation the way you probably should have, right? And like I said, with this podcast, I want you to be able to handle it when it happens, right? Saying, hey man, let's just stop, let's just stop this real quick, right? I need you to act a certain way because if you're not acting a certain way, things could happen, right? That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, right? That's something that you always need to have in the back of your mind. You always need to have that in the back of your mind. Um, yeah, and with that being said, like, right, if a man disrespects another man, they inherently know where that could lead, right? It's always going to lead to violence. It always can lead to violence. So therefore, I would say men are more respectful to men nowadays. That's something that I will say though, and of course, there's going to be outliers in certain situations where, of course, that doesn't apply, right? Whatever. But I do believe that they always have that inherent feeling that's like I said, the precursor to a potential violent situation, right? And which is very very interesting, because which brings me to our next point. A man disrespects a man, they know that violence can occur. A woman disrespects a woman and recognizes that violence can occur. But now, when it's the other way around, right? When a woman disrespects a man, where does that really lead us, right? That is the idea that I got from watching this one Jordan Peterson clip, and he was talking about that, and it kind of threw everybody in for a loop because there's not a real way to properly handle that, right? Because obviously, resorting to violence, which some men do, which I find is absolutely barbaric, but some men actually go out of their way and will let somebody have it. We'll let a woman have it, right, for the one time, right? Um, that's absolutely ridiculous. But thinking that you need to resort to that because a woman is disrespecting you, it says something fundamentally about society. I think it truly does. It says something about the culture, the culture and the way it exists in the country that you're in. I do believe that very, very deeply. I do believe that everyone should treat everyone with respect. More importantly, women should definitely treat men with respect. And I would say more than ever, there has never been a time where women have been disrespecting men more than today, ever. And they get away with it. Society lets them get away with it every single day. I see it all the time in social media. I see it all the time where they will just let a woman slide because she's a woman instead of saying, "Hey, we need to hold everyone accountable who's not acting in accordance to what would create a healthy society." Right? So like I said, a man disrespects a woman, he's a misogynist. A woman disrespects a man and it's just another day. There's nothing wrong with it. No one truly has a problem with it because no one's truly talking about it. There's very few people that have, and I'm sure you can observe this as a person listening to this, right? There's very, very few times where you see a woman disrespect a man and somebody says, "Hey, somebody needs to check that woman." A man disrespects a woman, people are willing to step in and check him, right? But if a woman does it, like I said, there's almost no consequence. There's no consequence, which like I said, I don't understand. I don't understand how there's no true consequence. Obviously, karma is one thing, right? But a consequence for your wrongdoing in the moment, I truly do not see a downside for a woman disrespecting a man and getting away with it. That's something that happens all the time. And like I said, fellas, if you're trying to create a healthy society, that shit needs to stop. It just does. It just does. But give me 1 second, fellas. If any of this, if any of what I say resonates with you, I want you to go ahead and leave it down in the comments, right? If you're curious to know my take on a certain disrespectful interaction, also leave it in the comments as well. Or if you have any just questions in general, leave it in the comments. If you're watching this same thing, make sure to go ahead and leave it in the comments as well. Appreciate it. I'm gonna reiterate this, right? Women need to respect men as a whole. They just need to respect them again because they don't respect them on the level that they truly should, right? Like I said, right? Some men think that it's okay to resort to violence when it comes to a woman disrespecting them, right? Which I would say is a tragedy. Is definitely a tragedy. That's crazy, but at the same time, right? There's going to be certain occasions where somebody's going to disrespect you too much, and what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do, right? And like I said, if it's a man, you're obviously gonna fight. Here's the thing: you might not be in the best favorable position. You might not be able to win the fight, but you're gonna fight, right? To defend your honor, to defend what you stand for, right? Which is definitely a respectable act in general. But like I said, a woman disrespects a man, and there's no consequence. There's no consequence. Truly, there's no consequence. And I think the only people that can truly shift this narrative is not me personally, right? I'm going to talk about it to bring awareness to the situation because that's what I like to do, right? With the platform that I have, I want to be able to bring awareness to certain things because they need awareness, right? But just as Jordan Peterson made, and I'm going to reiterate some point that he made, he said, the only women that could truly handle those type of women who thinks it's okay to disrespect men is other women, saying, hey, that shit is truly not okay. You need to respect men. Because if he wanted to, in most situations, if a man wanted to, he's going to have his way with a woman, right? Physically. So, with that being said, there needs to be an innate level of respect, truly. There needs to be an innate level of respect. And to live in a society where that isn't the case doesn't make any sense. You're literally just protected by law. But for the time being, where the law doesn't exist in real time, certain situations can end up a certain way that is definitely not going to be favorable for the person that's dishing out the disrespect, right? That's just the way it is. That's just life, right? Like I said, women openly disrespect men nowadays, and society thinks it's truly okay. Like I said, if this continues, this will be one of the downfalls of society. I do truly believe that if this continues and gets worse than it already is, which is already absolutely terrible, but if it gets any worse, fellas, we're going to be witnessing a downfall of this our society, at least the Western civilization. You're going to see a decline in every single aspect just from this one thing, because this one thing definitely trickles down to a lot of different things. And like I said, a lot of people are unaware that it can trickle down to these things. So that is the topic for today, fellas. How to properly address disrespect. If you're watching this, like I said, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on this video, and also leave a comment if you have anything to say to me or any questions regarding disrespect or how to handle a disrespectful situation. Make sure you go and leave in the comments. Appreciate it. But like I said, fellas, you need to be able to establish your boundaries. How much is too much, right? Understand that when you hit a certain thing, when you hit a certain threshold, right? You're going to need to say something. You're going to need to do something. Say something. You're going to need to either remove yourself from the situation, which is something that I would definitely recommend to a lot of people for sure, right? If there's a certain situation where you're getting disrespected, just leave. Just leave the situation, right? There's just no point in staying in the situation because you're obviously not in a favorable position anyways. So you might as well leave. You might as well leave. Um, I've seen myself do that a few times where somebody's disrespecting me, and instead of saying anything, right? I think what can say a lot more than just words is just obviously actions, and just remove yourself from the situation. It allows that person to reflect and say, hey, maybe I actually did something wrong, right? You're going to get that person to second guess their actions based off of your action of just walking away. So that is something that I would definitely recommend to a lot of people. And of course, it's not going to apply to all situations of in all forms of disrespect, but it should say something. It should definitely say something to that person that is being disrespectful, especially intentionally disrespectful. To move yourself from a situation is definitely going to be needed in some situations for sure. But like I said, you need to become very very clear. If somebody starts talking to you a certain way, saying a certain thing to you, like I said, you need to be able to say, hey man, you need to relax, my guy. You need to relax. You're doing the most right now. You're doing the most right now, and we ain't gonna let this slide, man. And I would say like I said, handle it in a calm way, but do not do not incite violence if it's not necessary, right? Of course, like I said, there's going to be certain times and places where, like I said, you're going to need to defend your family or you're going to need to defend yourself because somebody is truly, openly, intentionally trying to disrespect you and trying to embarrass you, right? I feel like that's another thing, right? Especially in front of people, right? That's not okay. That should be not okay, right? That's disrespect, and that's disrespect. I would say that's more disrespectful. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Jake. I appreciate you for stopping by, my guy. Yeah, he's exactly right. You're exactly right. Um, but yeah, that's the man's duty, right? That's the man's duty. And like I said, I wouldn't say violence is always going to be the answer. It's definitely not. There's plenty of situations where it could be just handled with words, which like I said, I would say most situations can be handled with words, but in the certain situations where they can't, right? Where they're truly egging you on, pushing you to the limit, of course you need to handle it the old-fashioned way, fellas. The old-fashioned way, right? All right. What we need to show. Yeah. That's something that I was talking about a second ago, right? So I'll get back on that point. I'll get back on the point in a second, but give me 1 second. Like I said, create your boundaries, firmly establish your boundaries for yourself, right? How much disrespect is too much where you're going to need to go ahead and do something, right? Obviously, you shouldn't be just openly accepting disrespect, right? Because you're allowing that to happen again, right? If you treat yourself a way where, like I said, you're just allowing disrespect, the next time it happens, you're just going to allow it again, right? And if you're a person of any moral character, you should understand that that's not okay, and that you need to actually go ahead and do something about that because you truly can do something about it. I feel like a lot of people, they like I said, they don't know how to handle it correctly. They let it happen to them. They fight over little things, which I would deem to be what would be toxic masculinity is fighting over something that doesn't need to be fought over, right? So, for example, I'll give you one of my favorite examples, right? If we're playing basketball, this has happened countless times to me, countless times to me. The most absolutely ridiculous argument that I've ever had ever. We're playing basketball, fellas. I'm whooping this guy's ass, and he's talking about, hey, do you want to fight? Bro, just accept your L, bro. Just get better at basketball, man. Like, I don't understand why you think resulting to violence over a game is truly the correct way to go about that. Trash talking is going to happen in basketball, right? And of course, some people are going to cross the line. But here's the thing: I'm not a person that crosses the line when it comes to trash talk because I know it's just a game, right? There's people that are willing to fight over a basketball game, over disrespect in a basketball game, right? There's going to be a competitive nature, right? And I feel like people cannot exactly remove that from disrespect, right? there's shit talking, and then there's actual true disrespect outside of hooping, right? But yeah, that is just one of my favorite examples that I truly deem to be like toxic masculinity. I don't believe that there's a tons of forms of toxic masculinity like society will lead you to believe. But what I do believe that there's going to be certain situations where, like I said, violence isn't exactly needed, and the fact that you're adding that to try to prove a point when the point needs to be proven in another way it just never made sense to me. So like I said, there's going to be certain situations. Handle it correctly, fellas. Um, hold up, yeah. The boy Jake, man. Shout out to Jake, man. I'm pretty sure that was 170 for subscribers. Like I had mentioned on the last podcast, I recently hit 50,000 total views. So every single person that has contributed to that, I thank you for that. And like I said, we're on the rise, fellas. We're on the rise. All right. Yeah, and I want to reiterate this point, right? Everyone views disrespect or disrespectful acts differently. They truly do, right? Like I said, some people's thresholds are a little bit different, right? You know, some people there's going to be the slightest hint of disrespect, and they're going to want to escalate the situation immediately. Or there's going to be people that, like I said, let it happen. They let somebody disrespect them, and then until they're pushed too far, then they have no choice but to act, right? So there's a few different types of disrespectful interactions, right? I feel like saying something to somebody, or like physically doing something to somebody. Obviously, those are going to be different. They're going to vary differently for sure. Like, let's just say somebody bumps into you, right? Accidentally, right? Obviously, I would say that's still disrespect because you weren't handling yourself the way you should have. Obviously, accidents happen, so saying that, hey man, like, that's not okay, man. Don't do that, man. Come on, now. Right? That's one thing, right? And now if it's intentional, okay, then man, you stop doing that. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? Or like I said, a fight, right? Or like I said, with words is something different. Words is something different, right? Like, you shouldn't be able to take words too seriously, right? If you truly do not care about that person, why do their words truly affect you emotionally? I heard that said before, where if a person can truly affect you through their words, they literally have mind control over you, right? And I was playing basketball this one time, and this guy was like, he was getting really pissed off if somebody shit talking to him. I'm like, you cannot get that bad. You cannot get that down bad over what somebody says. He literally has control over you. He literally is manipulating you. He literally has a certain type of control over you. Um, but yeah, I just find that I find that interesting for sure, right? So don't let somebody have control over you, right? Take their words with a grain of salt, because quite frankly, if they don't mean anything to you, their words realistically shouldn't mean anything to you. It should not trigger you too crazy. And of course, like I mentioned, there's certain times and places where it's going to vary. But for the most part, if you truly don't care about that person, their words really shouldn't mean anything to you, for the most part. But all right, so like I said, I'm gonna reiterate this one point. Shout out to Jake, man. A man disrespects a man. They both clearly know where it's going to lead to. It's going to lead to a very, very violent situation potentially, right? So I feel like men, for the most part, they do kind of know when to draw the line. I feel like they really do. Like I said, more than others, of course, but I feel like men, they know they're better at handling disrespect. Um, when it comes to, like I said, a certain situation, because like I said, they know violence can definitely strike at any time, right? So they're definitely going to be a little bit more careful. But like I mentioned, a woman does it to a woman, of course, the same thing, right? You know, there's a potential for violence, right? And then I bring me to my next situation, right? A man gets disrespected by a woman. How is he supposed to act? Truly, how is he supposed to act if she's being bluntly disrespectful? How is he supposed to act? And like I said, you shouldn't resort to violence because obviously she's a woman, which is something that I will talk about as well, right? How are you going to expect equality, but yet that there's such a heavy narrative that, oh, you shouldn't do this? That's not equality, but that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother thing right there. But a man, obviously, as a man, you should not disrespect women. Simple as that, right? I don't even think that needs to be said, right? A woman has many different ways of handling that situation. I would say ultimately, if you're a woman getting disrespected by a man, remove yourself from the situation, because obviously you're not going to be able to physically handle the situation. So therefore, remove yourself from the situation, whether it's a person that you're dating, whatever it is, right? If you feel disrespected, um, remove yourself from the situation and then communicate about it later. That's the way that I would say to do it. Especially if it's making you feel truly uncomfortable. Yeah, remove yourself from the situation and then talk about it later, or talk about it then, and say, hey, I'm truly feeling disrespected by your actions or by what you said, and I'm going to expect you to, you know, correct your actions, or I'm going to remove myself from the situation permanently. Right? That's the proper way to go about disrespect. But now, which is I'm gonna talk, which is something that I mentioned earlier. Right? Most people don't know how to handle that. So a man gets disrespected. Right? He'll start arguing with his girlfriend. Right? Girlfriend disrespects him. He'll start arguing with her. You lost. You lost. You did not handle that situation the correct way. Right? I do believe men shouldn't argue with women in a relationship in general. I truly don't believe that that should be a thing. Of course, there's going to be there should be respectful, um, somewhat uncomfortable discourse at times. Of course, I think that's absolutely needed. But to argue, truly argue aggressively, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Not worth your time as a man. Um, at that point, like I said, I would remove myself from the situation because I'm not about to get yelled at by a woman. Like that's just not something I'm doing. I'm just not for that. And as a man watching this, if you're a man watching this, you shouldn't handle that either, right? Like I said, remove yourself from the situation, or like I said, calmly ask for the respect that they should have been giving you, right? Like I said, fellas, it is so pivotal. But like I said, society doesn't want to talk about it that much, man. I don't understand why. But yeah, I'm kind of get off on a tangent. But like I said, a man disrespects a woman, he hates all women. That's damn near the way society views it. That's my observation. I'm speaking out of my own paradigm, but that's the way that I see it. Like I said, a woman disrespects a man, and fellas, is just another day, another moment in the day, and it is what it is, right? It's more openly okay for a woman to disrespect a man than a man to disrespect a woman. This is the way that I see it. This is the way that I see society sees it, right? If that makes any sense. A man disrespects a woman, he's a piece of shit. A woman disrespects a man. What did he do? What did he do? They're not even quick to really judge the woman based off of that. They're honestly reflecting on what the woman did or what the man did, as far instead of putting their energy and focus on the person doing the disrespecting. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, but that's just the crazy world we living in, fellas. This is the crazy world we living in. Hold up, let's see. Hi, I wanted to. My gosh. Okay, my boy. Come on now. I'm checking the Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment. I appreciate you for stopping by, and also leave a follow if you haven't already been following. But like I said, if there's any specific thing that you want me to address, whether it comes to a certain situation and how I would handle it, let me know in the comments. Or if there's any questions you have regarding the topic of today, make sure to leave in the comments. I appreciate it. All right. Let's see what he has to say. Appreciate it, Jake. By the way, I'm responding to you. If you're still watching, I appreciate your kind words. I truly do. All right, fellas. Like I said, hey man, y'all. Everybody needs to respect everybody. That's what it comes down to. That's the main message of this podcast today. Is everyone needs to respect everyone, and if you're feeling disrespected, learn how to properly handle that. Right, and take every single moment that somebody's disrespecting you as a learning experience, because that's exactly what it is. You are you need to be more conscious and in the moment when it happens, and say, "Hey, here's a moment where I could, choose a few different things, but which one am I going to choose that is going to truly handle the situation maturely?" Now, it's a lot harder to do. Easier said than done, right? But it's definitely something that you need to be mindful of, and definitely something that, like I said, within my recent interactions, I don't get disrespected that much at all. But like I said, if a situation were to happen, um, or let's just say a situation did happen, right? I would know how to properly handle it because, like I said, it's something that I've thought about, right? Most people don't think about these things. They just, they just react to it happening instead of, thinking about a certain situation before it happens, right? There's many different examples I can give for that, where people need to truly think before they act, or rather, be proactive about the situation instead of reacting to the situation. Because, like I said, a lot of people are just reactive, right? A lot of people are just reactive. One of the examples that I like to use is this, right? So, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, right? Let's just say I have interaction with a woman, right? One of the first things that I talk about with her, and this is something I'd recommend if I'm gonna put y'all on game, right, is go over go over the reality of a potential problem happening, because it's not if, it's when. Problems happen in almost every single interaction that you have in this life. Now, how you go about the problem is going to say a lot more about the interaction and how much you guys truly want it. So you need to be proactive instead of reactive, right? Instead of saying, hey, we have a problem. We have a problem right now. Okay, so how are we going to go about it, right? Instead of what you should be thinking about is, well, when we're on good terms, how would you like to go about a problem? Now now you bring her into the interaction and say, hey, let's try to figure this out together before it even happens. And when it happens, let's go about it together, right? And instead, a lot of people do this, which I don't understand, right? They go into interaction, they never truly address how they want to go about a problem. They have a problem and then they just leave. They find discomfort, they would rather just leave, right? That's not okay. That's not okay. In most cases, it's not okay, right? But there's certain things you need to be proactive about instead of reactive, right? I'd much rather be in a situation where we already kind of know how to go about the situation, instead of it being a brand new situation and saying, hey, now we need to adjust, or rather, it's me versus you now, right? There's certain things you need to be proactive about, because it's going to lead you to a more favorable result in life. That's just my personal opinion. But obviously off topic, but I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying at least. Um, yeah, fellas, I want to know you guys. I want to know you guys' take, man. I can't believe I'm not getting more comments, man. Like I said, if you're in here, I want you to leave a comment, even if it's just "Hi, champ." Please just leave a comment. All right. All right. Yeah, we're about 40 minutes. We're about 40 minutes deep. So, like I said, I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Also, one thing I want to let you know, I'm going to be having a live stream probably Sunday. Probably Sunday. So stay tuned in for that. It'll probably be Sunday night, more than likely. But I'm going to be doing a live stream every single week outside of the podcast. So if you're interested in that, just make sure you keep tabs on when I'm doing the live stream, because that's just going to be a little bit more of a different type of vibe. It's going to be more loose, less topics to talk about, hopefully more, comments and stuff like that, so we can, get some just casual conversation going, right? So if you're interested in that, also I listen to music and stuff like that on the live stream. So if that interests you, that is something that I'm going to be doing this month for sure, and continuing on to next year as well. So hopefully, hopefully you appreciate that. Other than that, fellas, let me see if anything else I want to cover on this. I think I got everything. I think I got everything, fellas. Like I said, if you have any questions about anything that I had mentioned, or you want me to repeat everything I said, make sure you go ahead and leave in the comments, and then I will go ahead and do that, of course. Oh, my back's killing me. Yeah, yeah. If there's one piece of thing that I would say to take from this podcast, is saying, just respect everybody around you, man. The fact that I need to say this, and the fact that I even need to make a podcast like this, says it all. It really, really does says it all. When was the time you got disrespected, and how did you handle that? Okay. I'll answer that question. I'll answer that question. That's a good question, right? Let's just say a situation happened recently, right? A recent situation happened, okay? It was a person that I am very familiar with. He talked to me in a certain way where I did not like it. So the way I went about it was just leaving the situation. I'm not about to handle that. I'm not about to just get disrespected. Um, or saying that my opinion doesn't matter. That's not okay. That's not okay neither, right? Everybody's opinion matters to an extent, of course. Some mean more than others, but at the same time, to say my opinion doesn't mean anything. I'm not even talking to anybody that says that. So I just removed myself from the situation and just didn't talk to that person for the rest of the day. That's the way I went about it. Um, like I said, other than that, I think maybe another time that I could mention, like I say, it had to be on the basketball court. Like I said, I don't get disrespected that often, but if I do, it's probably on the basketball court. Um, and I say things that'll make people reflect and that'll make people think like, what does he mean? Like I mentioned, right? I got disrespected one time on the basketball court. I seen somebody get disrespected. I was like, hey man, don't let that get into your head because they damn near have control over you. Like I said, just letting people be mindful of those certain things and how they react to those certain things. I would say is definitely going to be favorable for sure. But like I said, I would definitely recommend you pausing the situation, right? Saying, hey, well, before we go any further, right? You need to correct your behavior because obviously I'm not going to accept that. I'd rather just walk away. I, just like everybody else, wants to talk to people who are going to respect me. And if they do not respect me, that's fine. I'll just remove myself from the situation. No hard feelings. I'll remove myself from the situation, and I just won't have that interaction. That's simple as that, right? That's going to be damn near the best way you can go about it. If you're trying to avoid conflict and things like that, right? I do believe that there's certain situations where you need to, like, let's just say, for example, right? You're in the workplace, right? And your boss is disrespecting you, talking to you a certain way that you do not appreciate. Checking him right there is going to get a lot more respect than not saying anything, right? And I see that happen all the time, right? There's certain bosses that I've had in the past that just that treat people differently, which I don't appreciate at all. Um, but like I said, I seen somebody get disrespected, and I was like, hey, that's not okay. That's really not okay. And I think it's up to that person truly to say, hey, you are not treating me the way that I need to be treated. So you need to go ahead and adjust your behavior. But like I mentioned, a lot of people they're just so scared. They're just so scared and paralyzed by situations like that. But I truly think it just comes down to preparation, right? Are you truly prepared for the situation to happen, right? Have you thought about it before a potential situation can happen? And a lot of people don't, right? I think about a lot of things that people don't think about, right? That's why I have a podcast because I want to talk about those things, right? You need to thoroughly think out these situations before it happens, right? Or let's just say a certain situation happens to you, right? And you do not appreciate the way that you responded to the situation, right? That is a learning lesson, fellas. That's the way that you should look at it. It's a learning lesson, right? Maybe I could have handled that situation differently. Handle it differently next time. Think about it. What are the ways that you could have went about it? Ask yourself these questions. Do the thinking. A lot of people don't think, bro. And the fact that I even have to say that is just ridiculous, right? Most people don't think. They just don't, right? I'm not even trying to be any type of way. They just don't think. Crazy. Why does that keep going down, man? That's pissing me off, man. But yeah, fellas, I'm gonna go ahead and end the podcast here in a minute. Like I said, I'll wait for 5 minutes. If you guys have some comments, make sure to go ahead and leave in the comments. All right. Yeah, on the live stream, I'm probably gonna be doing it because Friday nights are terrible for live streams, in my opinion. Right? I did my podcast on there on Fridays, and it wasn't ideal. Saturdays, probably not ideal. Sundays is probably gonna be the move, I think, because Saturdays people are just doing shit, so there's just no point. Can y'all see the camera slowly going down? My tripod is slacking major, but it's fine. Whatever. Yeah, before I end it off, like I said, make sure you go ahead and follow my TikTok, Life of a Champ Podcast on TikTok. Also, Life of a Champ Podcast on Instagram as well. And make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts as well as my videos. I'll be posting more videos in the coming weeks, so make sure you tap in with that for sure. Other than that, fellas, like I said, I'm waiting on y'all, man. If y'all don't got any more comments, I'll go ahead and end it off. Man, you need to get this man up out of here, man. What are you doing? I'm reading some comments. Give me a second. I think it was one of my new followers on Twitch, man. Tweaking, man. Come on now. What are you doing, man? It's fine. All right, fellas. I'm gonna go ahead and end it off, man. Y'all not commenting, so that's fine. All right, fellas. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Like I said, make sure to leave a like on the video if you haven't already. This was the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 82, talking about how to properly handle disrespect, right? Like I said, next live stream is going to be on Friday, or not on Friday, on Sunday, so make sure you tap in with that. And I'll leave you guys off with this right here. The mantra of the podcast. Fellas out here, we don't just work, we outwork. So make sure you outworking these motherfuckers every single day. Doesn't matter what it is, just make sure you outworking these people, man. Come on now. You guys have a good rest of your night. And like I said, make sure you tap in on Sunday. Y'all have a good night, man.